In this video, I'll be going through my translation of Huangbo's Wanling Record, Section 3. The Section 3 of Wanling Record. So this is the Chinese text for Section 3. It's shorter than Section 2. And as usual, I'll break it up into the question part and the answer part. So let's look at the question part first. Again, 问, ask. So this is probably a question asked by Pei Xiu. 圣人, holy person. So for holy person, no mind is thus Buddha. And this is related to what Huangbo taught in section 2 in the previous video, where Huangbo taught this mind is the Buddha, no mind is the way. So the concern for Pei Xiu here is with regards to no mind. So for holy person, no mind is thus Buddha. But for mundane person, 凡夫, for the mundane person, won't no mind be sunken, empty extinction, which is some sort like sunken oblivion. Like the stone here, sitting in this still water, not moving. So first, to appreciate the question, we have to understand holy person, mundane person. In Buddhism, a holy person is basically one who has seen the way, so-called a noble one, Arya, or one who has realized the truth or the partial truth of emptiness, or non-self, or suffering, dissatisfaction, etc. One who has seen through delusions, or at least so-called caught a glimpse through to realize the truth. For those of the Arhat path, you can consider the first fruit of the four fruits, the first fruit stream entry. If one has attained stream entry, probably can be considered a holy person or a noble person. Or for those on the Bodhisattva path, probably the one who has attained the first bhumi, or the first ground of the very joyousness. That person can be considered a noble one or holy person. So this is the definition in terms of Buddhism, holy person. So for a holy person who has already caught a glimpse or has seen the way, no mind is thus Buddha. But what about for a mundane person? Because a mundane person is basically one who has not seen the way, not realized the truths, still ignorant and deluded. So for such a mundane person, won't no mind be like sunken, empty extinction, like sunken oblivion. So Pei Xiu's concern is kind of like, won't no mind lead mundane people to be like deadlocks and stones with blank minds? Like such a stone here, sitting in a still water, with blank minds. That's his concern about the teaching of no mind. Won't no mind be like blank minds? And with regards to no mind, Wu Xing, the concern that Pei Xiu brought up is actually valid because there are scriptural support also. Like in the Yogacara Bhumi Sastra, okay, it is said that there are different types of no-mind. For instance, there's the no-mind of nirvana, and there are some other no-mind which are samadhis, okay, meditative state, which should be only accessible only to holy or noble ones, okay, like that of nirvana. These are some types of no-mind which will relate more to holy person. But there's also the no-mind of deep sleep and unconscious fainting, which mundane people can access. Okay, according to the Yogacara Bhumi Sastra, deep sleep and unconscious fainting are also considered states of no-mind. Okay, not the light sleep where it's still filled with dreams. It's a state of deep sleep where there is so-called no-mind. Or for those who are familiar with fainting, when you are nearing the fainting stage, maybe you get into certain sort of dullness or maybe even dreamy state. But then you'll hit a point where you so-called go unconscious. Okay, that is no mind also. And for those who have taken general anesthesia, okay, deep anesthesia, it can also be a state of no mind. I think it depends on the doctor administering the anesthesia. If he's skillful, he would not need to cause a deep anesthesia. But if he administer a lot of the medicine, it can actually cause deep anesthesia. And it can also be considered a state of no mind. And such not knowing types of no mind actually aren't helpful in the context of Buddhism, because such no mind do not lead to realization, okay, because they are not knowing types, like oblivion, okay, the mind just go blank. So we might like to think deeper about the concern brought up, and especially with regards to the idea of knowing and not knowing. Not entirely relevant to what Pei-Siu has brought up, but it's interesting to consider knowing and not knowing with regards to the way. For instance, there's a famous koan, the case between Zhao Zhou and Nan Quan. Zhao Zhou asked Nan Quan about how the way can be known. Okay? And Nan Quan says, knowing is delusive or illusory awareness. Okay, 忘觉, delusive, illusory awareness. Whereas not knowing is ignorance, no memory, no record. So Nan Quan actually says the way doesn't belong to knowing or not knowing. If you know the way, then what you have known about the way is delusive. But if you do not know about the way, then that's just ignorance. And the way doesn't belong to knowing or not knowing. See? Another koan. Okay, someone actually asked Pa Ling. Pa Ling is another Zen teacher. Someone asked Pa Ling, what is the way? And Pa Ling says, clear-eyed person falls in a well. 明眼人落井. So for those who appreciate what Pa Ling is saying here, you probably agree that the way doesn't belong to knowing or not knowing. Sometimes people call it an experience of no experience. So is there knowing in it, or is there no knowing in it? Okay. Clear-eyed person shouldn't be someone stuck in dullness, shouldn't be someone who is feeling drowsy, sleepy. Okay, there must be clear alertness. If you notice the instructions given for meditation, the emphasis is almost always about alertness, clarity. So clear-eyed person falls in a well. Okay, the way doesn't belong to knowing or not knowing. This is from Essential Dharma of Mind Transmission. Okay, section 1, part 14. Essential Dharma of Mind Transmission is another text of Zen teacher Huangbo. So it says here, worldly people don't realize the original source, clear pure mind, because they only recognize the seeing, hearing, sensing, knowing as mind. Okay, the things that they sense, they see, they hear, they only recognize that as mind. And enveloped by the seeing, hearing, sensing, knowing, they do not therefore witness the essential luminance of the original basis. Okay? They do not witness it because they are obscured or obstructed by all that they see, hear, sense, and know. They can't witness the essential luminance of the original basis, which is the original source, clear pure mind. But in proceeding straight down to no mind, the original basis manifests by itself. Okay, no mind. This is one of the key teaching of Huangbo. Okay, in proceeding straight down to no mind, the original basis manifests by itself. And this is how you witness the essential luminance of the original basis. So it's not just by concepts, inference. You actually have to witness it directly for yourself. So the concern brought up, for holy person, no mind is thus Buddha. For mundane person, won't no mind be sunken, empty extinction, okay, sunken oblivion. This is the worry or the concern brought up by Pei Xiu, okay, which is a valid concern, I feel. So let's see how Huangbo answers this. Okay, so this is Huangbo's answer. A little bit chunky. So I've split it up into 3 parts so that it's easier to present it through PowerPoint. Okay, so for part 1, Shi Yin, teacher said. Okay, and this is a drawing of Huangbo Xiyun, okay, Zen teacher Huangbo. And some of you will have heard that supposedly he has a nice protruding forehead. Okay. Anyway, Shi Yin, teacher said, okay, this is what Huangbo said in reply to the question brought up by Pei Xiu. Dharma is without wholly mundane people or person. Okay, Dharma is without wholly mundane. And also without sunken extinction, okay, or what we can call oblivion. So it's interesting that instead of answering the question about no mind, Huangbo talk about Dharma instead. And it's to be noted that this Dharma spoken of by Huangbo is not those of conventional dharmas, okay, not conditioned dharmas that are impermanent, like that of dharmas of duality or dharmas of stages, grounds, bhumis. Okay, like that mentioned in Yogacara Bhumi's Sastra. Okay, this is not the Dharma that Huangbo says he's teaching. The Dharma that Huangbo is supposedly teaching is the Dharma of the ultimate complete, as mentioned in section 2, what we can call the Buddha Dharma, okay, the Dharma or the phenomenon of Buddha, or the Dharmakaya, the reality body of Buddha, or some people will say it's the true Buddha. Okay, so Huangbo is clarifying that the Dharma he's teaching is such a Dharma, okay, Dharma of the ultimate complete. And such a Dharma is without holy mundane, holy people, mundane people, and also without sunken extinction. So we see Zen school teachings generally go straight for the ultimate or the complete. Okay, the teachings tend not to engage much at just the conventional and provisional level. Okay, they go straight for the ultimate. So in a way, it might be helpful to some people who are so-called ripe. Okay, they are ready for awakening, enlightenment, or seeing the original nature. Okay, whichever way we call it, it's helpful to such people. But for many people, probably when we read such teachings, we probably don't understand what's going on. And such a Dharma originally does not have existence. But do not then make a view of non-existence. So sometimes we hear Dharma does not have existence. So we'll say, then it's not existent? No. It does not have existence does not mean that it is non-existence. Okay? So when we hear such things, we do not then make a view of non-existence. And the other way around, Dharma originally does not have non-existence. Okay, it does not have existence. It also does not have non-existence. But do not then make a view of existence. So basically, if you don't make a view of non-existence and do not make a view of existence, so what is Dharma? Okay, does it exist? Does it not exist? Or sometimes we can say it's beyond existence or non-existence. It cannot be said as such. Or some people say it was non-dual. So what Huangbo is probably implying here to Pei Xiu is not to make a view of existence or non-existence with regards to mind, even though it's said to be no mind. Okay, do not make such views. Being existent and being non-existent all are impassioned views. Okay, they are all views. And such views are just like obscuring illusions. Okay, they manifest and they are obscure, such that you can't really see through it and realize what is it about. And this is important because the goal of Buddhism is actually awakening. Okay, do not be fettered by ignorance and delusion. So Buddhism can be said to be largely about clearing obscurations. So that is the project of Buddhism, awakening. And views actually obscure. So the work is basically to clear obscurations. And impassion here, qing. Qing in Mahayana Buddhism generally refers to impassioned Vijnana. Okay, and Vijnana is considered a dualistic mode of knowing or dualistic mode of consciousness. So in passion generally refers to such Vijnana. And views established based on impassioned Vijnana are illusory and obscuring. So Buddhism generally aims for jnana, okay, proper, undivided knowing, or some people will say non-dualistic, okay, proper knowing, proper knowledge. Therefore, it is said, Huangbo is going to quote someone or quote the sutra or sastra. Okay, it's pretty amazing that during the speech you can make so many quotes, as you have noticed in section 2. And here in section 3, he's going to continue quoting. So he's going to quote, "Seeing, hearing are like obscuring illusions." And this is a quote in Surangama Sutra from Manjusri's presentation of a rather long verse to Buddha. Okay, and this particular quote is found in the second half of the verse. So this is his quote. And he goes on to quote Manjusri in Surangama Sutra again. "Knowing awareness turns out sentient beings." Interestingly, this quote actually is found near the start of the verse. So although we see here as 见闻如幻意，知觉乃众生, it seems like a continuous quote, but actually they are the quotes from Manjusri verse, but from different parts. Okay, this is actually found near the end, and this is found near the start. Okay, knowing awareness turns out sentient beings. Let's try to understand what this quote, "knowing awareness turns out sentient beings," mean first. So these are the lines in Manjusri's verse. "Confused delusion has empty space, establishing worlds based on emptiness. Perceiving clearness forms into lands or places." Okay, 国土, lands or places, or kshatra. Okay, and knowing awareness turns out sentient beings. So how do places turn out? How do sentient beings turn out? It's due to trying to perceive clearness and trying to know awareness. So in the verse it said that the original nature is that of empty clearness and awareness. Okay, in this emptiness there's clearness and there's awareness. So the original nature is that of empty clearness and awareness. But under the influence of confused delusion, in trying to perceive the clearness, okay, lands and places are formed. And in trying to know the empty awareness, these sentient beings are turned out. So this is what the verse is about. So with regards to sentient beings, the difference is between that of sentient beings and Buddha is that of confused, deluded. These are sentient beings. Whereas for Buddhas is awakened, realized. What about seeing, hearing? Okay, in the first quote here. Seeing, hearing, 见闻, is actually short for the 6 phenomena of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling or touching, and knowing, ideating. Okay, and if you notice these 6 phenomena, they are actually functions of the 6 consciousnesses, okay, attributed to the sense roots of eye, seeing, ear, hearing, nose, tongue, body, and manas, or the mental faculty, okay, for knowing, ideating. Okay, when these sense roots are in contact with their respective sense objects, okay, like all that you see, all that you hear, all that you smell, and then the food, all that you taste, and the feeling, the touching of so-called objects, and in the conversation, all the knowing and the ideating. Okay, all this can be shortened into 见闻, seeing, hearing. And again, the quote from Essential Dharma of Mind Transmission. Worldly people don't realize this because they only recognize the seeing, hearing, sensing, knowing as mind. Okay, they regard all these things as mind. And enveloped by the seeing, hearing, sensing, knowing, they do not therefore witness the essential luminance of the original basis. But in proceeding straight down to know mind, the original basis manifests by itself, like the great orb of sun rising in empty sky, shining throughout all 10 directions without any obstruction at all. Okay, when all this seeing, hearing, sensing, knowing, you can say reverse and collects back to the source, okay, proceeding straight down to know mind, then the original basis manifests by itself. Okay, this is important to witness the essential luminance of the original basis. So in understanding all these things, it's not just by conceptual interpretation or inference and all this. It's actually a direct experiential realization. So when Zen teachers teach, this mind is the Buddha, this mind is not that of known existence, okay? Having a view of existence, knowing it based on seeing, hearing, and all these things, they are not actually the Buddha mind that has been referred to. Similarly, when the teaching goes that no mind is the way, no mind is not that of known non-existence, okay? Trying to know this non-existence, okay? Trying to know blankness, emptiness, extinction. So no, it's not that. It's not that of perceiving or knowing no mind. So it's important to appreciate this, because all impassioned views of existent mind or non-existent mind are like obscuring illusions. They are delusive. And this is what Huangbo is trying to say. Okay, being existent and being non-existence, all are impassioned views. So how? If it's not existent, or if it's not non-existent, then what is it? And if it cannot be known, and not knowing also does not help, then what is the way? So we come down to the final part, part 3 of section 3. 祖师门中, okay, within the ancestral teacher's door. Door here can be understood as method, okay, like Dharma gates or Dharma doors, or doorways, gateways. Or it can also be read as within the house of the ancestral teachers. Okay, with door implying house. Okay, men. These are two possible ways of reading it. If there is only that which is based on the pivotal function of rest, to forget and views. Okay, because said earlier, views are problematic. Okay, they are obscure. So the ancestral teachers, which are the Zen teachers, okay, their method is basically based on the pivotal function of rest, to forget or to end views. This is what they mainly do. Because views are obscuring illusions. Okay? And it is due to impassioned Vijnanas that views are fabricated and delusively established. So the overall aim is to forget or end views. And in the Zen school, instead of basing on any particular model structure of practice with step-by-step stages of attainment, so-called the gradual method, Zen school tends to present itself as a Mahayana Buddhist school that goes straight for Buddhahood. And not just any Buddha, it's a Buddha of the ultimate type, okay, the Dhammakaya. So typically the methodology of Buddhism is that of holding on to the raft to cross over to the other shore, then relinquishing the raft. Okay, this is the typical method, whether it be for the Shravakayana, okay, where they base it on Buddhist doctrines, like the Four Noble Truths, for example, or the Pratyeka Buddhayana, okay, which they mainly use dependent origination, okay, understanding the conditional arising, or Paramitayana, okay, where the raft will be the paramitas, the 6 paramitas or the 10 paramitas, okay, perfections that bodhisattvas practice and perfect. Or for the mantrayana, okay, they will rely on mantras, make use of mantras. So the typical method for Buddhism is holding on to the raft, cross over to the other shore, then relinquish. But Zen Buddhism claims differently. And for bodhisattvas of superior capacity or whose preparations are adequate, Zen Buddhism claims to have the direct method of relinquishing all obscurations to realize Buddhahood straight away. Okay, the pivotal function, Ji. This is what they claim to make use of. And it's important to take note is for bodhisattvas of superior capacity or with superior roots or whose preparations are adequate. Okay, if you are not sharp, if you are not ready, whatever you read, whatever you hear of Zen teachings, they will make no sense to you and they can't help you. And for such cases, Zen teachers normally will say, go study the sutras or sastras more. Make sure you have the discipline to uphold the precepts, and they will give instructions for meditation. Okay, but if you are of superior capacity and your preparations are adequate, there's actually the so-called direct method to realize Buddhahood straight away. Okay, this is the pivotal function. Pivotal function can mean engine, or in the context here, it's like the crucial moment, opportunity or chance to effect relinquishment and cessation of views being held on to. So it's important to read all these Zen texts in such a understanding. Okay, it's not to establish new views or tell you new things for you to hold on to. It's actually just to effect relinquishment and cessation of views being held on to. So for instance, like Ling Ji, Zen teacher Ling Ji, he has his 四料简, the 4 methods of either snatching the subject or snatching the objects that's been held on to by the student. Okay, he has different combinations in trying to snatch away all that the student is holding on to. So instead of giving people stuff to hold on to, Zen teachers generally act to take away. Sometimes they are called thieves. Okay, they will steal and take away things. Sometimes they are called swordsmen. where they will cut things away. Okay, so instead of giving people stuff to hold on to, Zen teachers generally act to take away. Therefore, pivot to forgetting ending, thus Buddha way shall thrive. Discriminate and divide, thus Mara Sami shall blaze. And Mara is a demon deity, representing delusion and temptation, and all that is against awakening. All that is antagonistic to awakening. So even as Huangbo sets aside holiness and mundaneness, he tries to set aside such duality, and yet continues to talk about duality like Buddha and Mara, duality like Buddhas and sentient beings. It's important when we read Zen texts, like this text here, when Huangbo, even as he sets aside such duality and make use of other duality, they aren't meant to be picked up as dualistic views to establish. Okay, what Zen teachers normally do is to take away things. So the pivotal function of rest, to forget, and views. So even as he talk about Buddha and Mara, Buddhas and sentient beings, they are not meant to be picked up as views to establish. Okay, it's because Pei Xiu talk about holy people and mundane people that Huangbo tries to set it aside and go straight for the Buddha Dharma. So it's important when we read Zen texts, we have such an understanding. If not, it can be very confusing. Okay, and that's all I have for this section 3 translation. Yeah, I hope you find this video useful.